Given the persistence of cyber criminals, malicious actors, and rogue nation-states, these days there is little chance of avoiding a security incident. Most recently, by implanting malware in routine software updates, the recent Sunburst attack explored compromised systems for information of value. That is, before reporting back to the perpetrators and providing them with command and control over the victim systems. Now, rather than attempting to prevent incidents altogether, a better strategy is to assume that successful attacks against your IT resources can and will occur. A key goal of such an approach is reducing the dwell time of attacks that successfully penetrate an organization. The longer that a bad actor is in the system, the more data they can steal, the more systems they can infect, and the longer it takes to contain the scope and impact of the breach. So how can we do this quickly? Well, let's take a look. There are 3 critical questions that a security engineer looks at when they come in to initially conduct remediation. What was the host or device communicating with earlier? Where is the rogue host or device now? And who is using that host or device? Usually, this can take hours or even days to get this information, and that's bad news. Now I'm going to pass the baton to my colleague, Mike McGrath, who will walk you through how you can use the power of full fidelity forensics to get these answers not in hours or days, but seconds.
Let me give you an example. Let's pick an address that we know there's an incident of concern, be it performance or security, but in this case we'll say it's security. So what we do is we search for that IP, and very quickly we get to see that there are 2 devices, routers, firewalls, proxies, load balancers, whatever technology, that have seen this IP. And not only have they seen the IP, we're giving you a measure of the value of data that's been seen by this IP by the interface. And one of the things that stands out when we just expand this a little bit is that one of them is a VPN concentrator, and that draws our attention. And one of the things we notice that the IP address range seems to be quite similar, which would indicate that this IP is within the pool of addresses associated with this VPN concentrator. Now again, we can drill through and see some more information, but let's not drill down too far too quickly. And what we want to try and do as well is that one of the other things is that it's not in the present time, but it's back in time. So again, we've got 1 hour segments here that we can easily select over the last week, but we'll come back on time in a second. I'll expand that in a bit more depth. So again, we see the VPN concentrator, we see the type of applications that are being communicated with, and we see the destinations. And this is the destination of interest that came up in the IOC. So we now know that communication did happen, but more concerning is that it's coming from a VPN. Now, the good news is that because it's a VPN concentrator, there's an element of authentication. And the Cisco ASA has informed us that this is the user that picked up that IP at the point of time that we were interested in looking at. But what we don't have is we don't have a proof of that this user is who we think it is and where we think they're coming from. So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to pin and pivot the search based on the name as opposed to the IP. And out of that, we see another IP address appear, 75 address, Comcast, right? And what we also see is that the communication is UDP 443 to the outside IP address of the VPN concentrator. Again, Cisco AnyConnect, which is what we'd expect. And again, we can locate that IP and position on the map in Minneapolis. All right. Now, I just mentioned elements of time. So what we have is the system retains an overview of all IPs seen across the whole platform. And it keeps it in the form of what devices has that IP address been seen on, what interface and what volume of traffic has it generated on a per interface basis. Now, again, I'm only showing the week, but quite easily I go to System, Global, Storage, and I can set that value to whatever I want. And again, I can show you database, consumption, and so you'd have a clear understanding what the consequences of setting that high. But we've got customers sending that back for weeks and months at a time. So the key here is that we have the ability to search quickly. But also what I have to draw your attention to is that when we did pivot here by the user, I'm breaking down an obfuscation, which is what happens when you come through VPN concentrators. There's two connections. There's the outside connection and the inside connection. And effectively, that's what I'm trying to achieve here. Now, we didn't stop with VPN concentrators. This also happens with firewalls, with NAT. This happens with proxies. This happens with load balancers, the client side and the server side. You're trying to track something. How do you track it? So obfuscation using those four elements is a key element to what we can deliver within the Observer platform. Looking to dig a little bit deeper, I mean, we can again select our incident, bring up a more detailed view. And as I dig into the flow records and just wait for that response, what I can also do is I can look to access the packets as well. And here's the filter. By saving, I'll actually produce an output of packets. So very quickly from an IP viewer, I can dig through flows, packets, without losing context.
Thanks for that walkthrough, Mike. So how will having all of this improve your bottom line business? Well, if you have access to full fidelity forensics at your fingertips, it becomes a very trivial thing to find out what systems need to be contained to limit the scope and impact of the breach. A security engineer can simply enter in a username or IP address to find all devices, interfaces, and applications associated with it. In the same interface, you can also drill down into forensic level data, packet or flow. This immediate access to court-admissible forensic data speeds remediation efforts drastically, ultimately reducing the dwell time of the malicious attacker in the network. This yields many benefits. Fewer assets are stolen. Any legal costs or regulatory fines incurred are kept to a minimum, and any negative reputational damage is minimized due to timely containment and remediation of the incident. With that, I'd like to thank you for watching, and if you'd like to learn more, please fill out the form on this demo page, and a Viavi rep will reach out to you shortly. Thank you.